Earlier today, we talked with Marty Walsh, he's the Secretary of Labor, about what the Build Back Better package passed by the House would mean for workers.
Well, first of all, it's transformational. This bill is a historic bill for the country. There's investments in child care, investments in elder care, investments in pharmaceuticals and bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. There's investments in education, long-term universal pre-kindergarten, child care. There's investments in job training, workforce development, apprenticeships, particularly when you think about, at least for the Department of Labor standpoint, when you think about lots of the conversations in the country right now are about what's going on in the work world. We have an opportunity to help people find new careers and get into the middle class. And there are a lot of great aspects. It's the real first time that I remember in the history of our country that we've made an investment like this in people. And I think that's going to be a game changer for a lot of families in America and creating pathways into the middle class.
Secretary Walsh, what does it mean potentially for the Department of Labor and its ability to enforce things like wage and hour laws and regulations and also safety and health regulations?
Well, you know, one thing, since I've been here as Secretary of Labor, a lot of people look at enforcement of wage and hour and of OSHA as not necessarily a good thing. It looks like it's anti-business, and that's not the case. I would love to get us here at the Department of Labor, at OSHA and wage and hour, where we're actually informing companies and helping them, making sure that job sites are safe. And for too long, we've been somewhat of reactionary departments where we've been called to a scene of an accident on a job site, or we've been called to a job site where an employee might not have gotten their proper wages. And I would love to be able to get to the point here where we're doing education as well, working collectively with companies, working with businesses, working with people to make sure that job sites are safe. When I was a younger person, I worked in Boston as a construction worker, and OSHA would come on the job site, and what they would do at that time, they weren't coming on in response to an accident. They were coming on doing inspections to make sure the job sites were safe. And what happens when you do that is you have safer job sites. And I think that it's important that we get back to those. So in this bill, there's more enforcement for both of those departments, as well as the investments in the jobs and training.
One of the big concerns across the country right now is inflation. And as you know, Mr. Secretary, wages are going up. Actually, prices are going up faster than wages. What would the effect of the Build Back Better plan be on inflation? A lot of people are concerned to spend even more money in the economy right now. It takes us in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you know, certainly we've all acknowledged that that inflation is real and that we're moving towards working on that. One way we're doing that in this bill is by increasing the people's ability to get into better paying jobs. The economists have said that this will help us reduce inflation as we move forward here. And certainly there's more that we have to do as well. I mean, obviously the supply chain is a big issue as well. We have to make sure that particularly on the West Coast, we have to make sure that we ease that supply chain. The president's been very focused on that in making sure that turning the ports into 24/7. And now I'm going out to Los Angeles in a couple of weeks to talk to some trucking companies and the ports about how do we continue to stay on top of that. It's very important. I think almost 60% of all products that come into the United States of America come into the port of LA. So we need to make sure that port's working properly.
Mr. Secretary, do we want wages to catch up with the prices? Because obviously we don't want real wages to go down. That hurts the worker. But on the other hand, if we really catch the wages up to prices, won't that just feed the beast of inflation?
Well, I just think, you know, when it comes to inflation, I just think it's really important for us. You know, I know that they're connected, but for a second here, I just want to separate them. Too many Americans in this country are not earning good wages. Too many Americans in this country don't have a chance to get into the middle class. Too many families don't have that opportunity, you know, and I think that the president's plan of Build Back Better and what he said since he's been a candidate for president is to create a pathway into the middle class. And I think that the more people that we can create that pathway for in marginalized communities that have been left behind for so long, communities of color, women, so many people have not had a chance to get to the middle class and experience that American dream. We need to do more there, and these two bills will help us with that. And as far as inflation, we'll have the ability to be able to bring costs down. When people have the ability to be able to, if you have more supply of product and you have people earning more money, I would say that's a recipe of success.
Mr. Secretary, one of the priorities of President Biden since he came to office, and I know it's yours as well, is to really improve the lot of organized labor in particular. We're seeing perhaps some of the ramifications of that with, for example, the John Deere contract that was negotiated, which looks like it's pretty good for workers. Can you really buttress, enforce, strengthen organized labor without feeding inflation and driving up wages?
Well, I think organized labor, in some cases, has to do their work too. I mean, and the president certainly. I think I've said this more than one time. This is one of the probably the most pro-labor, pro-union administrations in the history of the country. In saying that, organized labor has a role to play as well. I mean, they have to go out there, whether it's a current contract, existing contract, or new contracts, to let people know that we can collectively work together with businesses to move businesses forward. The contracts, some of the disputes that we're seeing around the country, some of it is over wages and healthcare and pensions, but some of it's over working conditions too. So the concerns that people have in this country right now, generally, not just organized labor people, but everyone, their concern is making sure they're going into a safe work environment. We're still living in a pandemic time. And I think that some of these contracts are about work conditions, which is something we really haven't seen in quite a bit.
Secretary Walsh, one of the things that could alleviate some of the wage pressure and some of the inflation would be a higher participation rate in the labor market. As you know, we are below where we were before the pandemic, and particularly hard hit have been some subgroups, such as, for example, women. What are you seeing on the participation front, and what can the Department of Labor do about it?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that there's kind of a tale of two stories here. One is that we're not seeing the participation rate that we'd like to see in the country. Obviously, there are millions of jobs that are open, and we need to get those jobs filled. But on the next breath, we have an unemployment rate of 4.6%. Since President Biden's been in office, we've added 5.6 million jobs to the economy. That's a faster recovery than was originally predicted. So we have to just continue to move forward one step at a time here. The Department of Labor, we're doing in many different areas. Number one is we're encouraging people that are looking for employment or change careers to reach out to the American Job Centers. We have them all across this country in partnerships with states and cities all across America, 2,800 in total. Working on that. We are also working on the emergency temporary standard that we put forth that we're having a court discussion right now with, but that was to get people vaccinated or tested inside working facilities so people could feel comfortable and safe going back to work. But there's no question about it that we have to continue. It's not just the Department of Labor or the federal government. It's also private sector. We need to collectively work together to get people back to work.